UCLA CMRS Text and Translation presents new English translations of primary texts from around the world, spanning late antiquity to the mid-17th century. I'm joined by Jennifer Smith, editor and translator of a modern English translation of Reginald Pecock's Book of Faith, the first volume in the Text and Translation series. Jennifer, thanks for joining me. Who is Reginald Pecock, and why is the Book of Faith important?
Hi, Allison. Thank you for asking. Who is Reginald Pecock? Well, he's a 15th century English bishop who's famous, that is infamous, for confessing to heresy and having his life's work burnt in a public bonfire at St. Paul's Cross in London in front of some 20,000 people. It was, as you can imagine, scandalous, although he was initially reinstated to his see. Within 2 years, he's sent to Thorney Abbey in the fens of Cambridgeshire, where he's isolated for the rest of his life and specifically cut off from any writing material. He disappears from the written record shortly thereafter. That last bit of punishment, however, the part where the authorities took his writing instruments, must have been especially hard for him, because Pecock was highly prolific during his lifetime. He wrote at least 50 books on Christian theology, many of which were in Middle English instead of Latin, which of course would have been the more common language during this period for theological writing. But Pecock wanted to reach the commoner, and so he wrote in their language rather than that of the church. His English, however, is still pretty tricky. Pecock was a quirky writer. I think that's the kindest way to put it. He was highly scholastic in his style, and his sentences were both long and syllogistic. He also loved to make up new words, and as I've shown elsewhere, about 10% of his vocabulary is first attestation. That is, his use is the first recorded instance of that particular word in the English language. I decided to translate the Book of Faith because it's a fascinating text, and I thought a lot of people, those who are interested in late medieval philosophy or theology, as well as those who study the pre-Reformation English writers, would find something substantive and new in his thinking. I also thought that it'd be valuable to enable people to engage with his ideas without having to get bogged down by his language. The Book of Faith is his last surviving book. It's actually part of a larger series meant to address two errors that he saw were common among lay people. The first is that they cleave unrulily to the Bible in ways they were never intended to do. And the second is that they weren't obedient to the clergy in matters of belief, because they saw that the clergy were fallible people, in fact, just as fallible as themselves. Pecock had already written 2 books to address that first error, one of which still survives, called The Repressor of Overmuch Blaming of the Clergy, or as I've translated it, A Defense Against Excessive Blame of the Clergy. The Book of Faith was designed to address the second of the errors, the error of disobedience. When Pecock discusses faith, therefore, he's talking about obedience, but it's a form of obedience that emerges from trust in the apostolic succession. Indeed, it's a perennial problem for people of faith. How can we trust in the church when the church is composed of regular people? I hope that those who read the book will both enjoy and benefit from his engagement with this very question. Thank you.